Okay, so it might have been a while since you've thought about subjects and verbs. I'm certain that you've learned it somewhere along the way. Some of you have maybe learned this every year in school, in elementary and middle school. But it's always good to have a refresher if you need it. So let's talk about verbs. For me, it always starts with verbs, and then you can always ask who or what is doing the verb, or is the verb. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute, and that helps you find your subject. So, verbs can be divided into three different types. We have action verbs, which is the most recognizable type by far. It shows an action. It can be a physical or a mental action. What that means is a physical action would be like Smith catches the ball. That's something that Smith is doing physically. You can see it happening, okay? It's a physical action. But if I said Smith imagines great things, that's a mental action. So they're both still something that Smith is doing. The one he's doing with his body, or she, I don't know about this Smith person, and one is the thing that Smith is doing with their mind. Okay, that's what I mean by mental action. So other mental actions would be Smith thinks, Smith wonders, Smith reads. That's a mental action. You can't really see it happening. Of course, there are some physical processes happening whenever you're doing a mental action too, but I digress. Smith is wearing good clothes. That is a physical action as well, to be wearing something. And you notice this verb has two words in it. Verbs can be verb phrases, which means verbs might be a singular word or they might be more than one word because there's a helping verb that is helping out the main verb. Okay, and all that word does is shows you that it is currently happening right now. Because we don't say Smith wearing good clothes unless we want to sound like a caveman. We say is wearing, and that just signals that it's currently happening right now. And that's what helping verbs usually do. These little helping verbs usually tell you when the verb is happening, but they are still part of the verb, an important part, and the sentence wouldn't make sense without them. So those are action verbs. Now let's look at verbs of being. These are all forms of the word be, okay? And of course this is where English can get a little bit confusing. Because they are forms of this word, but some of them look nothing like the word be. But forms of be, they show a state of existence, okay? And when we start looking at examples, I think that'll become more clear what I mean by that. But I always just imagine with being verbs, I imagine some hippie guy who's like super zen, who likes to do yoga and meditate every day, and he just says, can't we just like be? Okay, so states of existence, can't we just like exist, man, in the moment? So here are some examples of that. Smith is strange. So believe it or not, is by itself here is a verb. Now up here it was a helping verb because it was helping out the action, demonstrating when it's happening. But here it stands alone as a being verb because Smith's state of existence is strange, okay? And so that's what I mean by shows a state of existence, okay? Smith is strange. Now believe it or not, is a form of the word be. So is am, are, was, okay? Those are all forms of the word be. And this is why English, one of the many reasons English is a very confusing language to learn, because you would not recognize those as being related to the word be if you just looked at them. So some things with English grammar are things that you just have to know. And so if you ever had a teacher in the past that you resented because they made you memorize all the forms of the word be, or all the being verbs, all the helping verbs, you can look back and thank them because they're right. Some things you just have to know, okay? There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it. Smith will always be my friend. So this is a case, and this happens sometimes, where the verb phrase is separated by another word, okay? You could say Smith always will be my friend, but that sounds a little bit strange. It's okay, you could say it that way. It's just not the way that most people talk. Most people would throw always, which is a descriptive word describing the verb, right in between these two. But still, the verb here is will be. We could rearrange this sentence and say Smith will be my friend forever. And then forever, just like always, would be describing the verb will be. But anyway, will be shows a state of existence, okay? Smith's state of existence is that of being my friend, always. Okay? Smith has been here for a week. So here your verb, your being verb is has been. Okay? Smith's state of existence is that he's been here for a week. Has been. That is your verb. Smith was away last week. Excuse me. His state of existence is that he was away last week. Okay, where did he exist last week? He was away. These are just a little bit trickier for students to find, and they're sort of hard to describe how to find. But you can, if you need to, look up all the forms of the word be and kind of study that or keep that handy with you if you're really struggling to locate verbs in certain sentences and it turns out that they are these being verbs. You might do that to help yourself. The last type are linking verbs. What linking verbs do is they link a subject with its complement, which doesn't mean a whole lot to you. But as it says here, a subjective complement completes or equals the subject. So basically you can look at this as sort of kind of like an equal sign. Okay, for those of you who are more math-minded, maybe it helps to think of it that way. Here are some common linking verbs, though there are many, many more than this. Appear, taste, smell, feel, look, sound, grow, seem, remain, become. Now, some of these you might think those are action verbs, and you would be correct. So let me explain. Here are some examples of these words working as linking verbs. The linguine tastes delicious. Okay? So basically, if you can replace this word with an equal sign, the linguine equals delicious. The linguine is delicious. Okay? Then this is a type of linking verb. And for my purposes, I will never quiz you on the differences between an action verb, a verb of being, and a linking verb. But just know that in this case, tastes is the verb, okay? Even though it's not an action that the linguine is completing, okay? And I'll talk about that more in just a second. But it's telling you that the linguine is delicious. So if you can replace this with equal sign or is, okay, then it might be a linking verb. Let's look at another one. See, linguine equals delicious. You know what linguine is? Linguine is a type of pasta. It's kind of like spaghetti, but it's thicker, and it is delicious, depending on what sauce you put on it. All right, Paul became a physician. So the subject is Paul, because that's what is doing the verb. What did he do? He became. What did he become? A physician. So always, they call these linking verbs because it's linking the subject here, in this case Paul, to something else over here, in this case physician. It's linking those two words together. And up here it's linking linguine with delicious. You're all craving pasta now, right? Okay, here's the note I was talking about. Most linking verbs can also be action verbs. Okay, so if I said Herman smelled the cake, okay, then smelling is an action that Herman did, and so it would be an action verb. It's not saying that Herman equals the cake. Maybe you made a cake and you named it Herman, but I doubt it. Herman is a person who the physical action he completed was smelling the cake, okay? But if I said the cake smelled good, okay, then that means, let me see if I can, yeah. The cake smelled good So the cake isn't completing an action of smelling, okay? It's saying that the cake equals good in a way, okay? It's linking the cake to good, meaning it smells good. So that's a little bit of the difference there. We could do that on a few of these. The cake looked delicious. Okay, it's not saying that the cake has eyes and was looking. It's saying that to somebody else, somebody who's not present in the sentence, it looks delicious. Or the music sounds good to somebody else. Okay. All right, so that's just a little bit of review on what verbs are. So in all of these cases, to figure out what the subject is, you would ask who or what is doing the action, is being, or is equal to the last part of the sentence. So the linguine is what tastes delicious. So who or what is linked to what is in the latter part of the sentence there.